Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at this small box game here called Nimalia. This accommodates 2 to 4 players and takes around 30 minutes to play on average. Now before I share my thoughts on Nimalia, I want to give a shout out to the show sponsor KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in my show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Okay, so Nimalia is a puzzly game as you'll be trying to build a nature reserve out of these square cards. You can see that these cards are divided up into 4 quarters, and each time you play one into your own personal reserve, you have to cover at least 1 square below it. You can completely cover if you wanted to, but at a bare minimum, you have to do at least 1/4. And you also have to stay within the confines of a 6x6 grid. So you can see here that I actually have got 6 going sideways, so I couldn't go any wider, but I got a little bit more leeway to go upwards. We'll talk more about this later and what we're trying to build. But the game comes with a ton of these square cards, so you're not always going to see the same cards pop up. You've got this score track, which has been kind of divided up into these separate cards just to make sure it all fits in this small little box, which is a nice touch. And you also have this little scoring setup where you have these variable score objectives of the 4 different colours, and these also come in 3 different difficulty categories. So you've got the blue ones, the green ones, the yellow ones, and the red ones, which is just the different types because you cannot have 2 of the same type. You can see that there's fixed spots for having all the different types there, but they are completely variable. They're double-sided and you come with a ton of them in the box here. But for this particular game, you can see that the objectives are these ones where we are trying to have these otters on these rivers connecting to these little kind of ponds or oceans. You are trying to have penguins or individual penguins in each column, and each time you do that you're going to get 3 points. You're going to want to try and have exactly 4 squares of these savannas, and each time you do that you're going to get 6 points. And the final red card here says that I want to have the most crocodiles or alligators and the fewest amount of the flamingos, and if I achieve that and I'm the first player, then I'll get 5 points. Second place will get 2 points. Now the numbers here are relevant because it's going to show which different categories score each round. So you can see in the first round the blue card and the green card here are going to score because, again, the line connects the 2. In the second round, it's going to be the yellow and the green card. In the third round, it's going to be the red and the blue card. In the fourth round, it's going to be the red, the yellow and the green card. And in the fifth round, it's going to be the blue, the red and the yellow card. So the turn structure of the game is very simple, where each round, each player is going to draw 3 cards from the stack. They're going to choose one to keep. So let's just say, without thinking, I'm going to choose this one here. And then I'm going to pass the remaining ones on to the next player. And once everybody's selected the card, you're going to reveal them simultaneously, and then add them to your own nature reserve. Of course, trying to achieve as many of those objectives as you can. So after a few rounds, your board might look something like this, and of course once the round is over you're going to have a look which round you are in and then going to score those relevant categories. But let's just, for example's sake, let's score them all here. So you can see the first category here, I want my otters to be connecting the water areas, and I've done that we've done it twice, we've done it 3 times, it looks like we've done it 4 times in total. Each time we do that I'm going to get 2 points. That's 2 times 4, that's going to be 8 points on the track. Up here, the next card is going to want individual penguins in each of the columns. Looks like I've only done that 2 times, therefore that is going to be 6 points because each time that is going to score 3. So that's going to take us up to 14 points there. The yellow category here says I'm going to get 6 points for each time I have a block of 4 savanna. I've only done that once here with these 4 squares here, therefore that's going to score me 6 points and take me up to 20. And then the final one here is going to be in relation to the other players because, you know, I want to have the most alligators and the fewest flamingos. Don't think I've done too good of a job there because I've got quite a few flamingos on show, so maybe that wouldn't do me so well. But you know, my alligators are pretty good, so I may have got some points there. But of course, depending on the round, some cards would or would not score. So after 5 rounds of that, you are going to calculate your final score, and the player with the most points is the victor. Now something else that's minor but important to note is that each other round the drafting order is going to change. So you can see in the first, third and fifth round it's going to go clockwise, whereas in the second and fourth round the drafting order is going to go counterclockwise. So before moving on, I'll just show you a few more examples of these scoring cards. So you can see this one here relates to the size of your grid. So if you only have a 2x2 complete, you'll get 3 points. But if you have a massive 6x6 complete, then you'll get 21 points. And that's not always easy because, of course, you are always overlapping cards. This one here, you want the gorillas next to the water. This one here, you want pandas on the edge of your reserve. This one here, you want to try and have as few of these giraffes as possible, because if you have none, you'll get a massive 8 points. But if you have 3+, you're going to score 0. This one, you want all 4 of the terrain types in each of your rows, and each time you do that, you'll get 3 points. This one here is going to give you points based on who's got the longest river in their reserve. And it looks like this one here is going to score in groups of the polar bears. Okay, so you can see from the overview there, this game is not terribly complex. It's pretty straightforward, so it's not going to take me too long to share my thoughts about it. But the thing I like about games like this is that they do a great job of leveling the playing field, because it doesn't matter how experienced you are at board games, the puzzle is still there, and it's still very difficult to try and optimize how to place each of your pieces or each of your cards, and you're always trying to overlap. One thing is going to sabotage another thing, so it's a very difficult thing to map out. And that is amplified by the scoring mechanism, which I happen to love. Other games have used this system before, games like Cartographers, games like Isle of Skye. We have variable objectives and they trigger at the end of different rounds. But this, again, adds a little kind of tactical element to it, where you might think, yes, I have a few flamingos on display, but that isn't going to score until the 3rd and 5th round. So I can kind of ignore this, maybe have those flamingos on display, which is going to optimize my other scoring categories. And then when it comes to that round, I'll start covering them up, and that will hopefully help amplify the other scoring categories. So you always can zigzag here. You can focus on one thing, then divert your strategy onto the next thing. You can keep things on the back burner, thinking, yeah, I've got all my penguins in position. I want to try to keep them there because I know it's going to score now and later, even a couple more times. So therefore, I'll try to keep that there and, know I've got those points in the bank. So that's a scoring system I love, and it adds a lot of longevity into the game as well, considering you have got so many of these different cards to score from. And it's really going to change the feeling and pacing of the game each time you play. Another nice touch with these scoring cards is that they do come in varying complexities. You've got very simple ones like this, where you're just going to score based on the kind of grassland you've got there. But you've got the more complex ones, with the 3-leaf systems, which are going to make it a bit more tricky to, to maximize those. So you can really tailor this to who you're playing with. If you are playing with younger kids who are definitely going to understand this, you can stick to the lower complexity cards and still have a great time. I really appreciate how easy this game is to teach. You can easily teach this in around a minute. All it is a simple 3-card pass and draft. Place your cards in front of you and then score the categories at the end of the round. If you understand that, you understand the entire game. So it's a very easy game to get to the table. I think the time investment for this game is right on the money. It is lightning quick to set up, lightning quick to play and pack away again. And, considering how quick the game is to play, there is still those, brain-burnery decisions about how you are going to place these cards. So even though it is a fast game, it is not a throwaway game, and you are going to be rewarded for being careful about your placements. The player interaction in this game is fairly minor. I think when it comes to the card drafting, you are going to be really focusing on trying to take the best card for you, rather than trying to think about what other players are doing. But of course, some of these objectives do depend on the other players for the majorities, etc. So that may force you to try and prevent a player taking a certain card, and you might draft that just to stop them having it. But when I've played this, I've kind of focused on my own little reserve and not really worried about too much about what other players are doing. I think the replayability for this game is pretty excellent because, as I mentioned, there are so many of these variable objective cards, and they do change the feel of the game quite drastically. And again, because it is so quick and simple, you can quite easily rack up a lot of plays here because it simply does not have those obstacles preventing getting it to the table. I think the production for this game is absolutely perfect, and as it should be. You've got these nice quality square cards that are the perfect size, and where each square isn't too small but not too big that it's going to be a massive table hog. All the terrain types are crystal clear. There's no ambiguity on any of the symbology. The actual objective cards are pretty clearly laid out, and even if you have a little bit of confusion, referring to the little rules book or leaflet is very simple, and you've got a quick reference guide there. So yeah, I've got no issues with the production at all, and it's really nice that it fits in this rather small box and is not going to take up much space on your shelf at all. And of course, this being such a small box game, it is very affordable. So you've got quite a lot of game here for a very low price. Okay, so let's share some final thoughts on Nimalia, and this game caught me quite off guard. Now, I took a bit of a punt on this one. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I do like puzzly games, and I do like this overlapping mechanism. I've played quite a few games with this mechanism, such as Agropolis, Sprawlopolis, Circles of Wagons, Hokkaido, and I can quite confidently say this is my favourite out of all of them. I think this goes hand in hand so well with this variable score system. You know, I do love this scoring system. It's such an underutilized mechanism, and I've never really disagreed with it being in a game. I think it's so cool, and it adds that little extra wrinkle to the decision making where you can, again, temporarily ignore an objective and replace it with another one, knowing that it's going to come back out later, and then you can worry about it. And those extra little restrictions, you know, always having to overlap one card, having to stay within the confines of that 6x6 grid. Very simple rules, but effective rules. I like the way that this game did not do anything to get in its own way. Just a simple 3-card draft, the scoring objectives, and the kind of card or tile laying, whatever you want to call it. Those 3 different moving parts of the game are more than enough, but still so digestible. But again, this is a great game that levels the playing field, and that's what I love about it, because you can play this with anybody. You can play with 2 or 4 players. You know, most of the gameplay is simultaneous, so it scales well, and it's versatile, and that's what I really love about it. So definitely one that's going to stay on my shelf for sure. It takes up very little space, but a really nice, kind of sometimes stressful little puzzle that is still a hell of a lot of fun to play. So definitely a candidate for kind of surprise of the year for me, really, because this one really did come out of nowhere, and I think it's a great example of what it does, and probably one of the best of its genre. So that is Nimalia, definitely gets a chairman's commendation.